Hello Year 1 Turtle class, hope you're all well. Today is Wednesday the 13th of May, it's just after lunch, so hope you've all had a nice lunch. Mrs Staples has got a thick fleece on today because she feels a little bit cold. It's story time again, and I hope you're going to like this book that I've chosen. The one I've chosen is called The Lighthouse Keeper's Lunch. Once there was a lighthouse keeper called Mr Grinling. At night time he lived in a small white cottage perched high on the cliffs. In the daytime he rowed out to his lighthouse on the rocks to clean and polish the light. Mr Grinling was a most industrious lighthouse keeper. Come rain or shine, he tended his light, and that means he worked really hard. Mrs Staples thinks that today's weather is this type of weather. It's chilly and cold. It's not really a nice sunny day today. Sometimes at night, Mr Grinling lay sleeping in his warm bed. The ships would toot to tell him that his light was shining brightly and clearly out to sea. So there's the lighthouse there, and it shines its big light so that the boats don't crash into the rocks. Each morning, while Mr Grinling polished the light, Mrs Grinling worked in the kitchen of the little white cottage on the cliffs, concocting a delicious lunch for him. Once she had prepared the lunch, she packed it into a special basket and clipped it onto the wire that ran from the little white cottage to the lighthouse on the rocks. So concocted means that she's mixed it, she's put it all together, so she's made him a really nice lunch, popped it in the basket, and it's going down on the wire. But one Monday, something terrible happened. Mrs Grinling had prepared a particularly appetising lunch. She had made a mixed seafood salad, a lighthouse sandwich, cold chicken, sausages and crisps, peach surprise, iced sea biscuits, drinks and assorted fruit. She put the lunch in the basket as usual and sent it down the wire. That food looks yummy. But the lunch did not arrive. It was spotted by 3 scavenging seagulls who set upon it and devoured it with great gusto. Devoured means that they ate it all. "Clear off!" shouted Mr Grinling, but the seagulls took not the slightest notice. And this seagull here says, "This is an exciting peach surprise." And this one here says, "She's a great cook." And this one here says, "Scrumptious lunch." So poor Mr Grinling hasn't got his lunch. That evening, Mr and Mrs Grinling decided on a plan to baffle the seagulls. "Tomorrow I shall tie the napkin to the basket," said Mrs Grinling. "Of course, my dear," agreed Mr Grinling. A sound plan. So Mrs Grinling is going to put the lunch in there, but she's going to make it tighter. Okay? She's going to secure the basket down. And what happened? Those cheeky seagulls got to the lunch again. And this seagull here is saying, "They'll have to try harder than this to stop us." They're very clever. On Tuesday evening, Mr and Mrs Grinling racked their brains again for another plan. "They are a brazen lot, those seagulls," said Mrs Grinling. "Definitely," said Mr Grinling. "What shall we do?" "Our cat does not appear to like seagulls," said Mrs Grinling. "No, my dear," said Mr Grinling. "Hamish is an accomplished seagull chaser." "Of course," exclaimed Mrs Grinling. "Tomorrow Hamish can guard the lunch." "A most ingenious plan," agreed Mr Grinling. "So the lunch is going to go down the wire with the cat on it." Hamish did not think that this plan was ingenious at all. He spat and hissed as Mrs Grinling secured him in the basket. There, Hamish," said Mrs Grinling, consoling him. I'll have a tasty piece of herring waiting for you when you arrive home. I think poor Hamish is feeling very, very scared. Sadly, Flying did not agree with Hamish. His fur stood on end when the basket swayed. His whiskers drooped when he peered down at the wet blue sea, and he felt much too sick even to notice the seagulls, let alone scare them away from the lunch. So here, this seagull here says, like a piece of lobster. And this one seagull here saying, this food gets better every day. And then this cheeky bird here is saying, aren't you going to chase us? But look, poor Hamish is feeling a little bit poorly. I don't think he likes being up high. Mr. Grinling was feeling sad. Their plan didn't work. Meow, agreed Hamish. On Wednesday evening, Mr. and Mrs. Grinling racked their brains again for a new plan. What shall we do? Said Mr. Grinling. Mrs. Grinling looked thoughtful. Ah, I have it, she exclaimed. Just the mixture for hungry seagulls. Indeed, my dear, said Mr. Grinling. What have you in mind? Wait and see, she said. Just wait and see. I wonder what it is. Oh my goodness. Her plan. Mustard sandwiches? Chuckled Mr. Grinling. A truly superb plan, my dear. Truly superb. So Mrs. Grinling has made these sandwiches and she's put extra strong mustard in them. So I don't think the birds are going to like that. On Thursday morning, Mrs. Grinling carefully packed the mustard sandwiches and sent them off down the wire to the expectant seagulls. So they were thinking, these seagulls were thinking, wow, yes, we've got our lunch again. One bird says, yuck! Oh! Mustard is very, very strong. On Friday, Mrs. Grinling repeated the mustard mixture. And this bird saying, all right, let's go and have lunch elsewhere. Oh, it's the same as yesterday's lunch. So on Saturday, up in the little white cottage on the cliffs, Mrs. Grinling put away the mustard pot before she prepared a scrumptious lunch for Mr. Grinling. While he waited for his lunch down in the lighthouse on the rocks, Mr. Grinling sang songs of old sea shanties as he surveyed the coastline through his telescope, so he's looking through. And this is what he saw. So he's seen them cheeky seagulls and they've gone to take somebody else's lunch. And he said, this seagull here saying, there's no mustard in here. And this says, this is a delicious chocolate eclair. And this one here says, we'll fly back here tomorrow for lunch. So this poor fisherman has lost his lunch to the seagulls. Now I think Mr. and Mrs. Grinling are happy because their lunch is safe. Ah, life is wonderful, said Mr. Grinling as he sat down to enjoy a leisurely lunch in the warm sunshine. So his lunch is all nice and safe because the birds had gone and eaten somebody else's lunch. And look, we've got a nice banana there and a lovely piece of chocolate cake. And I think there's some salad. I really hope you enjoyed that story, Year 1. Please take care and look forward to seeing you soon for another story time. Bye!